One of the new taxi fleets begins operations this evening. Chinese rescue teams free several survivors from earthquake-toppled buildings in Myanmar. And Donald Trump says he's not joking about trying to serve a third term as U.S. president. Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. The new taxi fleet Joy will begin operating this evening. Joy's operator Taiwo Management says 200 taxis will be initially available during its trial run. Joy is one of 5 new taxi fleets that received licenses from the government last July. Mimo Singhai reports.
These deep orange vehicles are Joy taxis, a mix of hybrid, electric and wheelchair-accessible cars. Starting on Monday evening, people can ride in the new vehicles by booking them on the company's taxi app. While the fleet consists of 800 vehicles, its operator, Taiwo Management, said only 200 will hit the road during the first phase of the trial operation. Joy's management company said they are in the process of recruiting drivers for the fleet. Fleet drivers will receive monthly base salaries, but additional money they earn from rides will need to be given to the company. However, drivers can accept orders from other taxi platforms. The government earlier said the purpose of introducing new fleets was to improve the taxi industry's service quality.
大部分都係請返現有嘅的士司機嚟嘅。
Zhao Guokern, chairman of the Hong Kong Taxi and Public Light Bus Association, said it would be difficult to change the industry's working style. He said most fleet drivers are from the traditional taxi industry and may not like the new rules imposed on them, including the requirement of wearing uniforms. The Transport Department issued conditional grants of the taxi fleet license to 5 fleets in July last year. Fleet operators must launch their service within 1 year of that date. After the launch, the conditional grant will become a taxi fleet license valid for 5 years. Mimus 9, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he's not joking about trying to serve a third term. This has sparked concerns. He is considering ways to breach a U.S. constitutional barrier against continuing to lead the country after his second term ends. Daniel Rao reports.
Speaking to reporters on Air Force One en route from Florida to Washington, D.C., U.S. President Donald Trump indicated he is considering running for a third term in office.
So many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we're doing. Most importantly, they love the job we're doing.
However, Trump added he didn't want to elaborate further on a potential third term, as his current administration has a long time left in office. Still, he earlier told NBC News there are methods with which sealing a third term could be achieved. When asked if one potential avenue to a third term was having Vice President J.D. Vance run for the top job and then pass the baton to him, Trump said that's one avenue and there are others too. The 22nd Amendment, added to the U.S. Constitution in 1951 after President Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected 4 times in a row, says no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. It is unclear how seriously Trump might pursue the idea. Dan Orell, TV News.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he's angry with Vladimir Putin after comments made by Russia's leader last week. Putin cast doubt over Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's credibility to govern. Trump also had a warning for Zelensky over rare minerals. The American leader pledged to end the 3-year war in Ukraine, but negotiations have made little progress. David Garrett with more.
Donald Trump told NBC he's angry and disappointed with Vladimir Putin and explained why on Air Force One.
Some of the things that were said over the last day or two having to do with Zelensky, because when he considers Zelensky not credible, he's supposed to be making a deal with him, whether you like him or you don't like him. So I wasn't happy with that, but I think he's going to be good.
If Putin is considered to be blocking peace, Trump told NBC he would place secondary tariffs of up to 50% on all oil coming out of Russia. As the leading buyers from Moscow, that would hit India and China. Trump perhaps hoping these countries can pressure the Kremlin. Zelensky says Trump shouldn't be surprised. Brutal strikes every day show Putin couldn't care less about diplomacy. The Ukrainian president said there is a US proposal for an unconditional ceasefire, and every day, in response, Russian drones. Zelensky went on to say the US and Europe can ensure diplomacy succeeds and Putin doesn't. Trump also had words for Zelensky.
Zelensky, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems. We made a deal on rare earth, and now he's saying, well, you know, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that.
Billionaire Elon Musk handed out million-dollar checks on Sunday to 2 voters in Wisconsin and promised smaller payments to others who help elect a conservative candidate to the state's top court. Musk said he would also pay supporters $20 for every voter they recruit over the next 2 days. He said he was spending the money to raise awareness of a race in which Liberal Susan Crawford seems to be running ahead of conservative Brad Schimmel. We actually are in serious danger of losing the election. We've got to pull a rabbit out of a hat, he said. The April 1st contest will determine the ideological tilt of the state's top court as it considers abortion rights, labor rights, and possibly election rules. Israel continued strikes on Gaza on the second day of Eid as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated a demand for Hamas to disarm and leave the Strip. Netanyahu says Israel is negotiating peace while under fire. Netanyahu made the comments ahead of appearing in court to testify on corruption charges, which he denies. The 75-year-old is the first sitting Israeli leader to take the stand as a criminal defendant. Netanyahu also nominated a new domestic security chief, former Navy Commander Eli Sharvit. In another development, the bodies of 15 medical and humanitarian workers were recovered in southern Gaza. The UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs dug through wreckage to locate the bodies after several days of searching. They'd been buried alongside mangled but clearly marked emergency vehicles. The victims included 8 members of the Palestine Red Crescent, 6 from the Palestinian Civil Defense, and 1 from the United Nations. The UN say they were killed by Israeli forces last week. Still ahead, 10 developers submit their expression of interest in large-scale land disposal in the northern metropolis. The Security Secretary accuses 3 overseas Hong Kong people of making speeches with intent to incite public hatred towards the government. And better than expected response to Russian products in a local retail shop. Welcome back. A Chinese rescue team has freed 4 survivors from the rubble of several buildings in Mandalay, Myanmar's second largest city, 3 days after a massive earthquake killed around 2,000 people. Searchers in Myanmar and Thailand are in a race against time to find more survivors. This as China has also sent its first batch of relief supplies to Myanmar, and Hong Kong has sent a team to assist in search and rescue operations. Tracy Furness has more.
Shortly after midnight Sunday, a search and rescue team from China pulls a woman from the rubble of the Great Wall Hotel site in Mandalay after being trapped for nearly 60 hours. Also in the early hours, a 5-year-old child and a pregnant woman are rescued from the rubble of the collapsed Sky Villa condominium. The 29-year-old woman, secured on a stretcher, was transferred from the site via a rope mid-air before being sent to a hospital, where she was pronounced in a stable condition. The smell of decaying bodies permeated the streets of Mandalay, Myanmar's second largest city and close to the epicenter of the quake. People worked frantically by hand to clear rubble in the hope of finding someone still alive. Chinese expatriates and residents in the country volunteered to coordinate large-scale relief operations to communities affected by the quake. They swiftly organised aid networks established over a dozen volunteer groups and fundraising channels to deliver critical supplies to hard-hit regions. Relief aid included drinking water, food and medical supplies gathered in the southern city of Yangon, which serves as the main hub for collecting donations. Relief efforts have been hampered, though, by buckled roads, downed bridges, spotty communications and the challenge of operating in a country that is in the midst of a civil war. This as the Hong Kong SCR government dispatched a 51-strong rescue team last Saturday to Myanmar to help with disaster relief efforts. The team reached quake-hit Mandalay this afternoon and started searching for survivors in 2 of the disaster areas. The team also gathered with China's rescue team and set up a camp base next to them. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Back locally, the government invited property developers to submit their expression of interest within 3 months for the 3 pilot areas of large-scale land disposals in the northern Metropolis. Today is the last day to do so. At least 10 groups have handed in their submissions. They include major land developers, including Henderson, CK Hutchison, Sun Hung Kai, New World Development, and Sino Group. Samantha Lee tells us more.
This morning, at least 10 land developers, including New World Development and China Camp Group, submitted their letters of interest. To accelerate the development of the northern metropolis, the government took reference from mainland China and newly attempts to sell large-scale land to private sectors. The 3 large-scale land disposal areas are Hong Shui Q Ha Chun, Fanning North and Santin Technopole, with land sizes ranging from 12.5 to 18.6 hectares. Unlike the traditional land sale practice, developers allocated a piece of land under the direct land grant approach can invest in building infrastructure and public facilities in their own ways. With the target of commencing the tendering work for the 3 pilot areas progressively between the second half of this year and next year, the government hopes to collect market views to finalize the open tender details and conditions. 5 major land developers have submitted their expression of interest. Some representatives from the industry said an expression of interest does not necessarily mean willingness to taking part. They also suggested the government give up the principle of selling to the highest bidder.
Kathy Lee, head of research at Colliers Hong Kong, said considering the property market in the city nowadays, it might be hard for enterprises to raise funds for development. Lawmaker Tony Zhe said setting a lower land premium might make the mega project easier. He also suggested allowing developers to firstly build private residential projects in a bid to get the return for building other public facilities. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Secretary for Security Chris Tang said in a newspaper interview that national security threats remain in the city. He named 3 overseas Hong Kong people and criticized them for making speeches with the intent to incite public hatred towards the government. The city's 10th National Security Education Day is on April 15th. In a newspaper interview, Chris Tang said Hong Kong still faces threats, including sanctions and smears, from external forces, as well as domestic terrorism. Tang criticized Yung Wing Yu, a former Hong Kong Examinations and Assessment Authority history manager, for setting an exam essay question in 2020 on the topic of Japan's invasion of China. Tang said Yung's action was anti-China and pandered to Japan. The other 2 named individuals are Chung Kim-hwa, the previous deputy head of the Hong Kong Public Opinion Research Institute, and current affairs commentator Shu Yuk-yun. Tang said the 2 had applied similar tactics to incite anti-government sentiment. As ties between China and Russia grow stronger, a store selling Russian products has recently opened in Hong Kong. Store owners believe they can compete effectively in this market, especially with an increasing number of Russians traveling or relocating to the city. Sakura Ip spoke with some of these newcomers.
After living in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia and Thailand, Russian artist Svetlana has now settled in Hong Kong for nearly 6 months, and opportunities are beginning to unfold. She is collaborating with various galleries, with her works being exhibited in Japan and South Korea.
Hong Kong, one of the best cities because of creative environment, creative people and a lot of opportunity for artists. If compared with Russia and other countries I live, Hong Kong is the best place for me to reach art collectors, art lovers from other countries. And it's good to expand my career here.
According to the Russian consulate in Hong Kong, there are roughly 2,000 Russians residing in the city, and Hong Kong Tourism Board figures shows that over 11,000 Russian travelers visited the city in February. That's a 10% increase compared to the same period last year.
The ties between Hong Kong and Russia in trade have been growing stronger. According to government's figure, Russia's trade turnover with SAR was $5.8 billion in 2023, showing a growth of around 50% compared to 2022.
In mid-March, stores selling Russian goods opened in Mongkok, featuring popular items such as caviar, one of the locals' favorite, and chocolate, which quickly sold out. One returning customer was a student. In addition to traditional foods, some unique health products have surprised Hong Kong customers, including a stomach supplement derived from large moths and a liver supplement containing bear bile. Ms. Lam, a first-time visitor, found these items intriguing as alternatives to Japanese and Korean products available in town. Mr. Lair, the store owner, reported that sales have exceeded expectations, with prices around 30% lower than products from other brands. Unique items like bear products, sea buckthorn, and birch tree extracts have been particularly well received. The store owner is planning to introduce more products featuring sea buckthorn and birch tree extract, while also considering opening more branches in the future. Zachary, TVB News.
And in football, 4 of the world's top football teams, including Arsenal and AC Milan, will make their way to the city to participate in the Hong Kong Football Festival this year. The event is set to begin on the 26th of July. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Football fans in Hong Kong will get to watch some of their favorite players in the English Premier League and Serie A play at the new Kai Tak Stadium this summer. Set to take place this July, football giants Liverpool and AC Milan will face off on the pitch on the 26th of that month, while North London arch-rivals Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur will meet on the 31st. Representatives of the 4 teams, consisting of former professional players Franco Baresi, David James, Bakary Sagna, and Ledley King, demonstrated some top-tier football skills to eager children today. Sharing his thoughts on the new Kai Tak Stadium, Italian football legend and longtime AC Milan player Franco Baresi said he's pleased his team is playing against rival Liverpool at the world-class stadium, while representatives from Arsenal and Tottenham hope fans in Asia are pleased with the city hosting the first North London derby outside of the British capital. Responding to concerns about the possibility of a repeat of football legend Lionel Messi's failure to play during the Inter Miami CF match last year, organizers stress the 4 teams will only bring their best for the fans.
They've been incredibly welcoming. I mean, these are 4 big branded teams. These are about teams that have got huge heritage. And, you know, these are important games to these teams. This is not about one player. This is about 4 big teams. So they're bringing full squads and will deliver spectacular matches.
Timothy Lee, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Pearl Magazine is up shortly. See you then.